Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. Today we got Nick Crowley, and this one is The Unknown YouTube Killer. We go get right into this, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment what you think down below. Let's go.
American scientist who went missing in Greece last week.
The Unknown YouTube Killer. I'm so curious.
It was the 20th of May, 1941. Nazi soldiers would take to the air to partake in a mission known as Operation Mercury. It was the start of what we know today as the Battle of Crete. And after nearly 12 days of bloodshed and thousands of deaths, Germany would eventually emerge victorious as they claimed the Greek island as their own. Flash forward nearly 80 years, and little trace of this dark historical moment remains, other than a few fortresses and bunkers on the island of Crete, left abandoned, decayed, and forgotten. But on the 9th of July, 2019, unbeknownst to a pair of amateur explorers, one of these forgotten Nazi bunkers would prove to have a single inhabitant. As they entered the unrecognizable structure, the two would peer down its ventilation drain just a few hundred feet into their journey, where they would find a woman left bloodied on its floor. She had been dead for days. The subsequent events that both followed and led to this single moment have made for one of Greece's most disturbing cases in recent memory, a case that features a bizarre connection to YouTube, as the man responsible for it all was an active user on the site, and his videos would quite literally take us right to the scene of the crime. July 2nd, 2019, a conference is being held at the Orthodox Academy of Crete in the Greek town of Hania. The event would last for days and had a focus on the study of molecular biology, attracting some of the brightest minds in the field to that area, with one of which being 59-year-old Suzanne Eaton. Suzanne was an award-winning American scientist who was no stranger to these types of conventions. In fact, she had visited Crete 3 times prior for similar business, and by this point she had come to know the area fairly well, and she enjoyed the island and the convention alike, as the event gave her the opportunity to meet with like-minded individuals. And on that second day of July, she was having nothing short of a great time. In the lobby of the academy, Suzanne would sit at its public piano, where she began playing music for her colleagues around her. She smiled, laughed, and even sang along with the tune she was playing, and as her final song ended and she played her last note, she would say goodbye to her colleagues briefly, as she had planned on meeting up with them again shortly, before leaving the lobby, heading in the direction of her hotel room. This would be the last time her friends would ever see Suzanne again. As that day came to an end and the next began, Suzanne's friends would notice that she had been absent now for nearly 24 hours, something that prompted them to contact authorities in the area, as being late and absent just wasn't like Suzanne. Crete police would open her hotel room to discover that there was no sign of the now missing lady, and not only that, but everything in her hotel room seemed to have been in perfect order, and only 2 items were missing: her running shoes and her running shirt. Despite being 59 years old, Suzanne was incredibly fit and would go on long runs daily. Given this, and the fact that her running gear was now nowhere to be found, it immediately became obvious that Suzanne had left the hotel to go on a run that evening on July 2nd. And given that she had not been seen since, it was assumed that somewhere along the way, Suzanne had vanished. This idea would later be backed up by testimony from both a local farmer and a local fisherman, with one stating that she was walking quickly behind a bridge and a chapel on the street outside the village. It was a troubling sign, as the area that Suzanne had last been seen running in was on the outskirts of the town and considered fairly desolate. She didn't know anyone in the area, and to make matters worse, the weather was described as being sweltering during that time, and prolonged exposure to the heat would have easily become deadly.
So she went on a run, and just pretty much disappeared after she went on it. No one knows what happened to her. And it's blistering hot. It kills someone hot if they were out in the heat too long. That's how hot it was. So yeah, that's concerning. That would make me concerned too.
Given what authorities knew at the time, it seemed most likely that after leaving the hotel for a run, Suzanne had either gotten lost or had gotten injured and was somewhere in need of help. This is something that her own two sons were adamant about as well, as they'd even flown to the area that very next day that she was reported missing, and they started performing their own search for their mother.
Since we're talking about a killer, I'm gonna assume that that's not what happened. Someone took a life. My confusion is just why.
They believed that somewhere out there, their mother was in desperate need of help, and if they didn't find her soon, well, she likely wouldn't survive. However, in reality, at this point, Suzanne Eaton was already dead, and she had been for days. On the 9th of July, two explorers would enter.
Wait, she's been dead for days. So she, like, I guess, got killed day of? Like, the day they think it happened? Oh, way before then?
An abandoned Nazi bunker, fully aware that Suzanne had gone missing in the nearby area. As they approached, they would notice that the entrance was sealed off by a wooden pallet, as well as thick brush. Perhaps Suzanne had sought shelter in there and was waiting for help, they thought. But that was wishful thinking. Nearly 200 feet into the bunker, the two would peer into its ventilation drain, where they would see the body of Suzanne Eaton laying lifelessly. She had been dead since the night of her disappearance. And even at a glance, one thing was painfully obvious, that however Suzanne had died, it was no accident. Suzanne's face was bloodied and broken in multiple areas. Her ribs were cracked, and her hands had both been badly damaged, scattered throughout.
Oh yeah, so someone like... Sorry, my nose is bothering me. Every time I film, I don't know what it is. My nose is bothering me where I sit right now. But whatever happened to her was very brutal. Like, she got... Someone had a bone to pick with her, because I don't think this is random. Then again, there's some crazy people. I could be wrong.
Throughout her body were multiple stab wounds as well, and bruises that implied she had been beaten. Suzanne Eaton had been brutally murdered. In an instant, the case surrounding Suzanne had gone from missing persons to murder, leaving the big question, who could have done this? Upon investigating the scene, police would notice a set of tire marks leading directly to the entrance of the bunker, which was noteworthy considering Suzanne's footprints were not found leading to the cave, meaning that she hadn't walked in there by herself, and instead was likely dumped there, potentially as a means of hiding her body. Also, this bunker in particular was practically unknown.
I mean, it's smart thinking by the killer to like, hey, I'll hide her in this really abandoned cave or really abandoned bunker. There's no way, because like no people are gonna go 200 feet into it to look for her. He was wrong.
It was only visited on the rarest of occasion, and given that there was no other trail leading to its entrance, it would be assumed that whoever had driven that car likely had their hand in Suzanne's death. Police would analyze the tire marks and eventually match them to a car that had been seen driving through the area on the very same day that Suzanne had gone missing. It had even been caught on CCTV footage heading in the direction of the bunker. The car was owned by 27-year-old Yanis Parakiskas, a happily married farmer and father of 2 young children. And looking from the outside in, he seemed like a fairly normal guy. And when questioned initially, he was adamant about the fact that he had nothing to do with Suzanne's death, claiming that it must have been a coincidence about his car, and that he...
That's a big coincidence, man. That's a big coincidence for you to claim. It's like, no, it's coincidence. Bro, it matches your car. It matches your car to an extreme extent. Like, that's a hell of a coincidence.
He wasn't even aware of where that particular bunker was. But Yanis had made one critical error in his story, an error that all stemmed from the fact that Yanis, at one point in time, had been actively trying to become a YouTuber. It may not seem like much, but this is a video of Giannis performing Qigong, a form of martial arts, in his backyard. He would post the video along with 2 others featuring similar performances to his YouTube channel, all of which being posted on January 3rd, 2012, where initially very few would see it. And from this perspective, one could say that these 3 videos.
So I'm gonna assume he made videos and they just got popular because of this situation. Weird looking dude though. Weird looking thing for this dude to be doing.
Are fairly inconsequential to this story, and therefore the channel as a whole is as well, given how barren it all seems. But this wasn't always the case. In the years prior to Suzanne's disappearance, Giannis was extremely active on his channel, posting videos of himself hanging out with friends, shooting guns, and playing with wild animals. The videos were honestly nothing special, but it was obvious that he had put time and effort into making them, even at one point posting a sketch video that would feature music, intros, and transitions. It had been no secret to those who knew Giannis that he was actively trying to gain a following on his channel, with the hopes of one day becoming a YouTuber. As we know now, this would never happen.
That's my goal. Get to thing I can become a good big YouTuber. I want to make money from this. But the thing I'm not gonna do is fucking kill people. I'm not doing that to me. He put more creative work in them than I am. I'm just listening to things. That's all I do.
As to this day, his channel stands with only 22 subscribers.
Oh my god, it just somehow got his views get like 8,000 views. You got 8,000 views and now only like 22 people are like, I'll subscribe to you. Everyone else just never could be asked.
And before his arrest, he would go through and delete the vast majority of his uploads. And as it turns out, he had good reason to do so. Throughout his time on the site, Giannis's most frequently uploaded content was his exploration series, where he would visit creepy areas around the island of Crete. And
oh my god, there's clips of videos of him in the bunker that the girl's body was found at. I mean, you just sentenced yourself right there.
out of all the locations he would film at, his most frequent and his favorite was the very bunker where Suzanne's body was found. As recent as 2016, Giannis had been posting videos of him exploring the abandoned Nazi bunker, filming it in a vlog-style format with him and his friends. He would even mention how the cave was in close proximity to his home, and that he would visit it regularly. Adding to the strangeness of it all, that particular bunker was quite literally unknown by even those who lived nearby, and those who did know of it would rarely, if ever, visit, given that it was quite simply nothing special. Giannis was one of very few who had ever entered that bunker, and he just so happened to have driven right up to it around the time that Suzanne had been killed. And with that note, he was practically caught red-handed, and when confronted with the overwhelming evidence against him, he would crack and tell authorities what really happened. While out on a drive, Giannis would happen across Suzanne jogging alongside of the road, and the mere sight of her, for whatever reason, had triggered something within him, and in an instant, he would snap. There was nothing particular that Suzanne did or didn't do. In fact, Giannis would later say, "I would do this to anyone I met in front of me at that moment." With his mind made up, he would step on the gas and accelerate directly into Suzanne, striking her violently.
So this woman's pure jogging. This woman's mind and home big is just jogging. And for some reason, it just set him off. It triggered him. It snapped. She snapped. And just drove into this girl. Drove into this woman. For no reason. Other than the fact that her pure existence triggered him.
As she laid there in shock, Giannis would back up his vehicle slowly before punching the gas yet again, this time striking her directly in her face. From there, he would exit his vehicle and proceed to assault her violently, even stabbing her multiple times throughout her body. He then picked her up and threw her in his trunk, where, though badly injured, Suzanne was still very much alive. Giannis would then drive Suzanne to the abandoned bunker, where he would proceed to assault her even more in ways too disturbing to discuss. And he did this over and over again.
What a fucked up individual this guy is. This woman literally did nothing. There was nothing anyone could have done to have seen this guy. Because this man was going to kill someone. Clearly. Suzanne just happened to be the unfortunate victim. But this man was going to do this to anyone. Clearly just seeing someone jogging just triggered him.
Inside the bunker, Giannis would toss Suzanne in its drain, leaving her to die. Injured and unable to breathe, she would suffocate to death alone. As Giannis left, he would seal the cave's entrance with a wooden pallet and then proceed to drive to a cemetery where he would clean out the trunk of his car. Once satisfied with the result, he would then drive home to his wife and children as if nothing had happened. Just a few years prior, Giannis was vlogging that very bunker where on that fateful night he would leave Suzanne Eaton to die in what coroners described as a slow and brutal death. Loved ones of the man were shocked as his confession would later be proven as accurate, given blood found where Suzanne was struck, as well as in the back of Giannis's car.
Imagine if you're the wife, or his kids, and you remember, the wife probably especially, I don't know how old the kids are, the wife especially, is going to remember that day. Because he probably came home smiling, happy to be home, hanged out with them, everything was fine, and she now will look back and realize that on that day, and that night, at that time he had taken the life of a woman. And she had no idea of it by his actions. That is insane to think about.
He would try and claim that a demon had told him to do it, and that he was possessed in that moment, but it was no use. Giannis was a guilty man, and the courts would give him life in prison, without parole. According to reports from his family, Giannis was a funny, kind-hearted guy, and their testimony might make one believe that this was just a man who, for whatever reason, snapped, as he had shown no signs that he would ever be capable of doing such a thing. However, I have my doubts. To start, we know that Giannis had been previously arrested twice, once for arson, and the other time for torturing and killing animals. No further details were provided for either of these cases, but these types of charges are literally some of the biggest red flags for future.
If they're the same charge, okay, the arson one, if it's something different, I actually would like to know about. The animal one, leave it be. I don't want to know any harm that's done to no damn animals. But if the arson charge is something separate and has nothing to do with animals, I'd like to know what happened there.
Serial killers. And not only this, but there was also a dark clue hidden within his YouTube channel. This video was the proverbial nail in the coffin for Giannis, as it provided proof that he had frequented that hidden bunker. But what I failed to show you was its most infamous moment. As Giannis explores the same spot that he had killed Suzanne, he would show the viewers bones that were scattered throughout the floor, with some of which appearing to be very human-like. This video was posted back in 2016, 3 whole years before Suzanne had been killed, but given the fact that no one really knew of this bunker, the sight of these bones is genuinely concerning. And it doesn't stop there, as in this same video, you can hear one of his friends talk in the background for a brief moment. In translated to English, he supposedly says, "Is this where you left that old guy?" It's perhaps the most chilling detail of this whole case, the fact that there were bones there in the first place, and the offhand comment made by his friend almost insinuates that Giannis
This man's secretly a serial killer. This man's just been killing. This person didn't actually just snap. He just found a victim and then he snapped. This might have been not the first time.
This had killed before. However, these bones have never been recovered and were likely removed from the cave at some point after the video aired, and whatever or whoever they belong to is still unknown to this day. So is it possible that Suzanne wasn't Giannis's first victim, and that he may actually be a serial killer? In my opinion, I would say yes, and at this point it's starting to become more than a hunch. It would later be revealed that Giannis had 2 similar run-ins with the police prior to Suzanne's death. In both cases, victims had come forward claiming that Giannis had attempted to kill them, specifically stating that he tried to run them down with his car as they walked alongside the road. For whatever reason, both cases were thrown out, but looking back on that note today,
I'm not so. I mean, on this channel, can we be surprised anymore? Can we be surprised anymore that sentences where a man tries to run over 2 people with his car somehow gets thrown out? Can we be surprised by this anymore? Let me guess. What was the? Let me think. Let me guess. The reason they didn't arrest him and bring him to jail is because he didn't hit them. That's all. Not because he didn't attempt it. Doesn't matter he attempted it. He didn't hit them. That way, what do you want us to do? That's their thought process, I tell you.
it's pretty frightening to think about, especially considering that they weren't the only 2 to come forward. After Giannis's arrest, 5 other female victims would take the stand, claiming that Giannis had attempted to run them down as well, a tactic that he admitted to doing to Suzanne in order to immobilize her and kill her with ease. And in the majority of these stories,
oh yeah, this guy was literally just, that was his way of hitting people. Okay, that was his way of getting them down to be a victim, is just hit them with the car.
these women were actually struck by his car, where he would then proceed to get out and pursue them further, with one woman alleging that Giannis had actually caught her and grabbed her by the neck. Luckily, in all of these other cases, there were joggers in the nearby area who had heard the screams and ran over to help. But had there been no one around, one could only imagine what Giannis would have done to these women. And to call these simple allegations at this point isn't even close to being accurate, as Giannis had actually admitted to doing this to law enforcement. As one article writes, the man had admitted to police that he would hit women he liked with his car. So all in all, Giannis...
This guy's not right in the head. This is not right. This man's not right in the head. This man sees that as his way of what? Showing affection? Hey, I like you. Let me kill you. That's his thought process. Because he can't talk to this man. How did this man get a wife? Like, actually curious about this. How did this man get a wife? Because this man clearly does not know how to react to women. So clearly, I want to know how this man somehow got a wife.
Had run down, or attempted to run down, 8 women, and of that group, only 1 would actually be further assaulted and killed, as the others had managed to escape, meaning that of the victims we know, 88% of them had escaped. To me, this number is shockingly high, considering how unlikely it would be to survive an attack of this style. I mean, he is literally running these women over.
So not only is he a killer, he's a bad killer. He's a bad serial killer because he has failed 88% of the time. He has only killed 1 person successfully. And that's all he needed before he got life in prison. This man is a terrible serial killer.
And then getting out of his car to attack them further. It's a cowardly style of attack where he should have all the power, and you'd think that the chances of even one of these women surviving would have been very low. Plus, he had knowledge of vast, endless cave systems and bunkers in the region that hardly anyone knows about, the perfect places to hide a body. Given this, and Giannis's prior videos in the bunker, I'm left to wonder if perhaps he had killed before. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day, some other cave explorers just happened to stumble upon the body of another one of Giannis's victims. I want to give a big shout out to my gold.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this reaction video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all for the next one.